Don't look away. Not yet. What you are about to hear will make you question every single person who has ever told you they love you. A man sits alone inside a locked church in Naples, Italy. 11:03 p.m. He broke in through a side window 20 minutes ago because every door in this city that he trusted has just closed permanently. His suit is soaked in blood. None of it is his. Not yet. He presses his back against the wooden wall of the confession booth and tries to slow his breathing, tries to think, tries to find the one move left in a game he just realized he never understood. He leans toward the grate and whispers, "Father, I was sent here tonight to kill the most powerful man in Italy. I had the gun, I had the time, I had the location." He stops. "I just found out he is my grandfather." Absolute silence. Then the priest's voice, quiet, old, unmistakable. "I know, Luca. We have been waiting for you to understand that for 23 years. All of us." All of us. Luca's hand finds the wooden divider. He tears it from the wall in one motion. The booth on the other side is empty. No priest, no shadow. The candle on the small shelf is still burning, still warm, but the booth is completely, impossibly empty. And on the wooden seat, a photograph, face down, edges scorched like someone tried to destroy it and stopped halfway. Luca picks it up, turns it over. 3 people in the photograph. A woman, an old man, and a child, an infant held against the old man's chest with both hands, the way you hold something you are terrified of losing. Luca recognizes the woman immediately, his mother, Elena. He recognizes the infant, himself. The old man, the one holding him like he is the only thing worth protecting, is the man Luca was sent to murder tonight. Outside, the clock tower begins striking. 57 minutes to midnight. Let's go back to where this started, because you need to understand what was built before you can understand what just collapsed.
48 hours earlier. Luca Ferrante had not slept in 31 hours, and it showed in exactly one place, his eyes. Everything else was controlled. The suit, the posture, the hands, the face of a man who had learned very early that showing exhaustion to the wrong person could get you killed. He sat across from Don Cesare Conti. No windows, one door, a desk that had absorbed so many terrible decisions it seemed to lean slightly under the weight of them. Cesare Conti was 71 years old and looked like the original blueprint for danger before danger learned to be subtle. 6'2", silver hair, almost military in its cut, hands that never moved unless they were doing something specific, eyes that processed everything in a room simultaneously and showed none of it. He placed a photograph on the table, face down, and said nothing. 12 seconds. Luca counted them. Then Cesare turned the photograph over, and the next 12 seconds, the 12 seconds in which Luca processed the face in that photograph, were the last 12 seconds of his life as he had understood it. Aldo Ricci. The name existed somewhere between mythology and nightmare, the head of the Northern Syndicate, a man so careful, so architecturally invisible, that serious people inside serious organizations had started to wonder if the name was even attached to a real human being. A ghost story that money obeyed. But the face in the photograph was unmistakably real. Old, powerful, eyes like a man who had seen the bottom of everything and climbed back up and decided that nothing would ever put him down there again. "He's real," Luca said. The words came out quiet. "He has always been real," Cesare said. "I am one of 4 people alive who knew this for certain. Now you are the 5th. He paused. "In 48 hours, You will be the last one who needs to. He's coming to Naples. He has requested a meeting. Cesare shaped the word meeting like it was something faintly ridiculous. He believes 34 years have softened me. He looked at Luca. Dead before midnight. Clean. No narrative. No trace. Why me? You have specialist men. Because Ricci agreed to meet you first, as my representative. He requested it. Something moved behind Cesare's eyes, not quickly enough for Luca to identify it. And because you are the only man I trust. Luca picked up the photograph, studied the face. That feeling came again. Not nerves, something older than nerves, something that operated below the level of thought. The biological alarm of a body recognizing something the mind hasn't caught up to yet. Those eyes. Why do I know those eyes? He told himself, 31 hours without sleep. The mind plays tricks. He was completely, catastrophically wrong. At the door, Cesare added one more thing. Quietly, gently, the way you deliver something important to someone who isn't ready to receive it. Whatever he says to you, Luca, whatever story he tells you, whatever he tries to make you feel. A pause. Dead before midnight. Luca walked out. In the corridor, he stopped. He looked at the photograph one more time. Why do I know that face? Giulia Marino existed in a room the city had forgotten. Sub-basement, Naples Municipal Archive. Shelves running floor to ceiling with documents that went back to 1743. Humidity controlled. Silent. The kind of room where time stopped being linear and became geological, layer upon layer of what had happened pressed into files, waiting for someone smart enough to read the strata. Giulia was that smart. She was the kind of brilliant that doesn't announce itself, the locksmith variety, the kind that understands hidden structure instinctively. She and Luca had 6 years of something between them that neither had fully named. The gravity of it was constant. The circumstances kept interrupting. Luca slid the photograph across her desk without a word. She glanced at it, the automatic professional reflex. Then she went completely still. 3 seconds. 4. She looked up, and Luca saw something in her face that he had never seen there in 6 years. Not fear, deeper than fear. The expression of someone watching a catastrophe arrive they have been dreading for a long time. "Where did you get this?" she said, not a question, a forensic assessment. "Cesare, 2 hours ago." "Luca," she set down her pen, "tell me you're not already committed." 48 hours.
She stood, walked to the door, checked the corridor in both directions, deliberate, practiced, the movement of someone who had learned surveillance awareness somewhere. Closed the door, locked it, turned back, and the composure cracked, just slightly, just enough to show what was underneath it, which was something that looked terrifyingly close to grief. "I need 3 minutes," she said. "Don't interrupt me. Don't ask questions until I finish. Just listen." "Giulia, 3 minutes, Luca." He closed his mouth. "I have been investigating the Ricci bloodline for 3 years, privately, using records I had no official authorization to access, because 3 years ago I found something in a 1989 probate filing that made no sense. A name connected to a name, connected to a third name, that pulled me somewhere I wasn't prepared to go." She swallowed. "Your mother's name before she became Elena Ferrante was Elena Ricci. She was Aldo Ricci's daughter. She ran in 1989, buried her history, changed everything, came to Naples, built a small, quiet life." Her voice dropped. "Had a son." The archive was very quiet. Luca said nothing. "She died," Giulia continued, "when that son was 2 years old, from a heart condition. That is what the death certificate says." She paused deliberately. "I am no longer certain that is what actually happened." The words landed one at a time.
Luca felt the room do something physical, a tilt, a realignment, the sensation of standing on something that used to be solid and discovering it was always just a surface. "Cesare doesn't know who I am," Luca said slowly. "I don't think so, but someone does. Someone who found out and decided that the right move was to put you in front of Aldo Ricci with a weapon and a deadline." Her voice went sharp. "This is not an assassination, Luca. This is a ceremony. Someone is using you to destroy your own bloodline with your own hands. And then—" She stopped. The window detonated. Not broke, detonated. The silenced shot came through the glass as a whisper attached to absolute destruction, and before Luca had finished processing the sound, he was already moving. 6 years of this, 6 years of the body knowing what to do before the mind finished asking. Diving across the desk, catching Julia as her knees buckled, dragging them both below the desk line as the second shot took out the fluorescent light directly above them, and the room dropped into darkness. His hand found her shoulder, warm, wet. "Talk to me." "I'm talking," she said through locked teeth. "I hate everything about this." "Third shot coming. I know there's a third shot coming." It hit the far shelf. "Run!" One hand on the wheel, the other pressed against Julia's packed wound, the narrow streets of Naples blurring past, cobblestone black, streetlights orange, the ancient city watching everything through its shuttered windows and saying nothing. Someone had been in that archive building. Someone had been waiting, which meant someone knew Luca was going to Julia tonight, which meant someone had anticipated his first move before he made it, which meant the surveillance ran deeper than a remote logging program, which meant someone very close had been watching him for a very long time. "Who else knew about your research?" he said. "Nobody." "Not nobody." "Nobody that I—" She stopped. Something moved through her face. "The archive server. I found a monitoring program 6 months ago. I thought I'd removed it." "You removed the part they let you find." She looked at him. She understood what he was saying. "They've had everything for 6 months," she said quietly. "Every file, every connection I drew, every record I accessed." "And they waited," Lucas said. "They didn't stop you. They let you build the complete picture, and then tonight," his jaw tightened, "they used you to confirm I'd come to you. They waited for me to walk into that archive, and then they tried to remove both of us." "Why not remove me 6 months ago when they found the server?" "Because removing you 6 months ago might have tipped Cesare that something was wrong. Removing you tonight, during an active operation—" He turned hard down a side street. "Looks like collateral damage. Looks like Ricci's people protecting themselves." Julia's breathing steadied. "Borelli," she said. Luca looked at her. "You said it first in the archive. You said it before I could." He hadn't realized he'd said it out loud. His phone rang. Unknown number. He looked at it. She said, "Answer it." He answered. A beat of silence, then a voice, filtered, deliberate, impossible to source. "You were not sent there to kill a man, Ferrante." Pause. "You were sent to erase a bloodline, and then you were going to be erased along with it. Tonight, clean. 2 bodies, 1 story. Ricci's people took revenge before they scattered." "Who is this?" "Someone who watched the trap being built and decided at the last moment that you deserved to know what you were walking into." "Tell me who." "Midnight is not your deadline, Ferrante." The voice went very quiet. "Your execution. Deadline." Luca set the phone on the console. Julia was very still beside him. "Your execution," she repeated softly. "Not just Aldo, both of you. One night, total erasure." She was connecting things in real time. He could see it. 34 years of secrets, one family's entire bloodline, gone before sunrise. She looked at him. This wasn't planned this week, Luca. This has been planned for years, possibly since before you were brought into Cesare's organization. The car moved through the dark city, and Luca felt, for the first time in his adult life, the specific cold of understanding that the life you believed you were living was always a room someone else controlled. The apartment above the fish market was cold and smelled of salt water and old wood. Luca cleaned Julia's wound in silence. She sat without flinching. He worked without speaking. When he was done, she pulled her sleeve down and looked at him with eyes that were still processing at full speed, still building the picture, still connecting every thread she'd been pulling for 3 years. "There's more," she said. "Tell me what you know about Cesare and Aldo before 1989. "Partners," Luca said, "early 80s, built their organizations together, shared territory, shared capital. By the end of the decade, they were the 2 most powerful emerging figures between Rome and Sicily." He paused. "And then Domenico Conti was killed in a Palermo warehouse during a deal that collapsed without Aldo present. Cesare always believed Aldo set it up, that Aldo deliberately missed the meeting so Domenico would be exposed."
"That is the story someone told Cesare," Julia said. "That is not what happened." She reached into her jacket, removed a folded document, set it on the table between them. The paper was worn at the creases, held and unfolded and refolded many times. "Original Palermo police report," she said. "First officer on scene, filed before senior investigators arrived and reclassified everything. 3rd paragraph." Luca read it again. The name in the 3rd paragraph was not Ricci. "Borelli was in the warehouse," Luca said. His voice had gone flat in the way that voices go flat when the mind is absorbing something too large for normal processing. "Present, armed, recorded by a witness who was interviewed once and never contacted again." She tapped the document. "Aldo missed that meeting because of a car accident on the A3. Traffic report confirms it. Consistent timeline, 200 kilometers away. He was never there. He was never part of it." She paused. "Marco Borelli killed Domenico Conti and then drove back to Cesare and told him that Aldo had sold his brother out." The fire crackled. The fish market below was closed and silent. "Why?" Luca said. "Because Borelli was 26 years old and had spent 12 years building toward a seat at the top of something great, and the one thing standing between him and that seat was the fact that Cesare and Aldo were inseparable." Her voice was controlled, but something underneath it was very angry. "You cannot be the most essential man in an organization where the leader's most trusted relationship is with someone else. So you don't attack the leader, you attack the relationship. You take a hammer to the foundation, and then you become the foundation." He built Cesare's empire on Cesare's own grief. For 34 years, the most powerful man in the Conti organization, without ever being the visible man, because visible men get targeted. She looked at him directly. "Now, Aldo is coming to Naples, dying of cancer, with 3 months left, asking for a meeting, probably because he found out the truth somewhere along the way and wants to clear his name before he goes. That truth, documented, provable, destroys everything Borelli has built." "So Borelli found out about me," Luca said. "Found out I was Elena's son and told Cesare to use me specifically, knowing that if I killed Aldo, the truth dies. The last person who might inherit the Ricci bloodline is eliminated on suspicion of betrayal, and the lie becomes the permanent historical record." She held his gaze. "Everyone inconvenient gone in one night." Luca stood, walked to the window. Below, the empty cobblestones, the cats, the sleeping, indifferent city. Why is Aldo really coming? Not the reason he gave, the real reason. Julia was quiet. Too quiet. "Julia."
"I found personal correspondence," she said carefully. "From 8 months ago, when the diagnosis was confirmed." She paused. "Luca, Aldo didn't come to Naples to negotiate. He didn't come to clear his name. He came because 6 months ago he found out his grandson was alive. He found out Elena's son had grown up in Naples, was alive, an adult, and working for the man who had spent 34 years trying to destroy their bloodline." Her voice went very soft. "He came for one reason, to see your face once before he died. That's the only reason he agreed to walk into the most dangerous city in Italy for him, just to see you once." The room tilted. Luca pressed his forehead against the cold glass of the window. His grandfather was in this city tonight, dying, looking for him, and Cesare had sent Luca to be the weapon that ended both of them. His phone buzzed. Image message, unknown number. He opened it. He looked at it, and the floor disappeared from under him entirely. The photograph was taken inside this apartment, this kitchen, this table, this lamp, this hour. Giulia sitting exactly where she was sitting right now, across from Marco Borelli, smiling. Not the controlled smile of a hostage performing calm, not the tight performance of someone buying time. A real smile, the relaxed, familiar expression of someone who is comfortable with the person across from them. He stared at it. 4 seconds. Then he looked up at Giulia, and something happened in his chest that he had been told by better men than himself to never let happen. The thing where the two categories collapse into each other. The professional, the personal, the assessment, the feeling. Collapsing. Luca? How did he know this address? Flat, controlled. How did Borelli know this address, Giulia? She held his gaze. He was rewinding. He could feel himself doing it, the involuntary 6-year audit, every piece of information she had ever produced at exactly the right moment, every answer that arrived without hesitation, every document that was already prepared, already folded, already in her jacket before he... Wait. The Palermo report. She reached into her jacket and produced it during their conversation in the safe house. She had been carrying it before he arrived, before she knew what he would ask. She was already prepared tonight. "How long?" he said quietly. "How long what? How long have you been—" "Don't." Her voice sharpened, not defensively, the sharpness of someone watching a person they love walk toward the wrong conclusion with too much momentum. "Look at me. Look at my face right now and tell me what you see." He looked. He saw anger. He saw urgency. He saw something painful that had nothing to do with guilt. He saw a woman watching him almost make a catastrophic mistake.
"He came here 20 minutes after you left," she said. "He found the address. I don't know how. A tracker on your car, probably. It doesn't matter. He walked through that door, and he sat at that table, and he gave me 2 options. One of them involved me surviving the night." She kept her eyes locked on his. "I sat with him. I talked. I performed exactly enough interest in his offer to keep him at that table. Because I knew that if you were the man I have spent 6 years believing you are, you would look at that photograph and you would question it, and then you would think. And you would realize that the smile was taken at the exact moment I said something designed to make him smile back. Because I needed him relaxed. I needed him talking." She reached into her sling, produced a small digital recorder, set it on the table. "And I needed him to say what he said." Luca looked at the recorder, then at her. "You had the Palermo report in your jacket before I arrived tonight," she said. "Yes. You were prepared." "I have been prepared for 3 years," she said. "I knew this night was coming. I didn't know when, but I knew it was coming." She looked at him steadily. "I have been waiting for you to be ready to hear it." He picked up the recorder. "What did he say?" She reached out and pressed play. Borelli's voice filled the cold kitchen, clear, warm, the voice of a man who believed, completely, that he was the most intelligent person in any room he occupied. You are a very intelligent woman. That is precisely what has made you dangerous, and what will, if you are wise, make you useful. Julia's voice. Useful how? The situation tonight has a preferred outcome. Luca completes his assignment. The loose ends, yourself included, are resolved. This is already in motion. I cannot stop it from here, but I can ensure that you are categorized differently, not as a loose end, as an asset. And what does an asset have to do? Nothing tonight. Simply remain where you are. Let events take their course. Silence on the recording. Then, tell me something honestly, not the strategy, the origin. Why? Borelli sighed, a genuine sound, the sigh of a man asked to explain something he had long since stopped questioning. I was 26. I had built something real. Cesare and Aldo were going to consume it, merge everything, one organization, one top, one number two. A pause. There was never going to be a place for me at the table they were building, so I built a different table. You killed Domenico to build a table. Domenico was impulsive and drew a weapon, and the situation became irreversible in under 30 seconds. What came after, the story I gave Cesare, that was the architecture. Domenico was just the accident that created the opening. An accident that you arranged? An accident that I allowed to have the correct consequences. Julia's voice went quiet. Elena Ricci, tell me. The longest pause on the recording, 7-8 seconds. Elena made her own choices.
She died at 41. Her heart don't. Another pause. She found the seam, Borelli said. His voice had changed slightly, something underneath the composure. She was brilliant, Elena. She found the seam in the story I had given Cesare. She put it together, not all of it, but enough to be dangerous. A pause. She made a phone call she should not have made, to a person she believed she could trust. She was wrong. And then she died. And then she died. And the son? The son disappeared into Naples and became someone else's problem, until 6 years ago when Cesare brought him in for a job, and I looked at his face and I understood immediately whose blood he was carrying. His voice smoothed back out. I made a decision at that moment to keep him close, to watch, to wait for the moment when he could be used to close the loop permanently. You have spent 6 years planning to use a man whose mother you killed. I have spent 6 years ensuring that every possible threat to what I have built is positioned where I can resolve it when the time is right. A sound, wine glass on marble. Tonight is the right time. Click. The recording ended. The kitchen was silent. Luca was standing at the window. He had not moved once during the playback. His hands were completely flat at his sides. His breathing was controlled. His face was doing the thing it did when what was happening inside was too large for the outside to contain. Gone completely neutral, which was the most dangerous version of Luca Ferrante there was. She found the seam in the story. She made a phone call, and then she died. His mother died because she was smart enough to find the truth and naive enough to trust someone with it. She was 41 years old. He was 2. He turned around. We have 43 minutes, he said. Luca, 43 minutes. We go to Borelli first, then to Aldo, then to Cesare. He checked his weapon, checked the recorder, checked Julia's face. Can you move? I've been moving with worse than this. When? Every time I get involved with you. She stood, reached for her jacket. The recording isn't legally admissible. It's not meant for a courtroom. It's meant for Cesare. It's meant to be played in a room with Cesare Conti in it, yes. She looked at him. He'll kill Borelli himself. Yes. And you're comfortable with that? He paused at the door. My grandfather is dying. He came to this city, the most dangerous city on earth for him, because he wanted to see my face once. He has 3 months. I would like those 3 months to mean something. I would like the man who killed his daughter to be answered for before the time runs out. He opened the door. That's not justice. I am aware of what that is, but it's what I have available tonight.
She followed him out without another word. The restaurant on the Lungomare was still lit. Borelli sat at his corner table like a man who had won every game he had ever played and had stopped finding it interesting. Same chair, 15 years of Friday nights, the ritual of a man who understood that consistency projected confidence and confidence projected safety. He was reading when Luca sat down across from him. He didn't look up. "Luca," he said with the warmth of a grandfather, "I expected you earlier." "I had a productive conversation." "Did you?" Page turn. "Was Julia helpful?" "Extremely." Luca kept his voice even. "She told me about 1989, about Palermo, about Domenico, about the 3rd paragraph of a police report you thought had been fully buried." The page stopped. "She told me about my mother," Luca continued, "about the phone call she made, about the heart condition that wasn't a heart condition." Borelli set the newspaper down, looked up, and Luca saw it again, what lived behind the grandfather smile when the performance stopped. Not evil, not malice, something colder and more efficient. The gaze of a man who has organized his entire moral architecture around the concept that what benefits the structure justifies the cost of building it. "Old documents," Borelli said pleasantly, "unreliable, particularly when handled by people with reasons to misread them." The witness interview wasn't misread. Witnesses die. The recording, Luca said, is harder to misread. Borelli's eyes sharpened. 1 degree, barely visible. But there is no recording of anything relevant. You built your empire on grief. That's a direct quote, from tonight, from this city, from a kitchen where you believed you were in control of the conversation. He tilted his head slightly. You weren't in control of the conversation. Silence. The restaurant around them was empty except for 2 staff members who had learned over 15 years that when certain conversations happened at that corner table, the correct response was to find something to do in the kitchen. Borelli looked at Luca for a long moment. Then something extraordinary happened. The grandfather's smile came back, not shaken, not forced, genuinely warm. "You are," Borelli said, "without question, the finest man I have ever worked with. Your mother had exactly the same quality, that complete stillness when something enormous is happening." He said it like a compliment, like a man genuinely moved. "Elena was extraordinary. You should know that. Whatever else tonight brings, you should know that she was the most extraordinary person I have ever had cause to remove." The word remove. Casual, clean, filed correctly. Luca's hand was flat on the table. The rage was a physical thing, enormous, pressurized, looking for the smallest gap. He gave it none. Luca had one option. Stay in this restaurant, make no calls, send no messages, speak to no one, and the worst night of your life will still be survivable. Borelli picked up his wine. "Or what, Luca?" Luca placed the recorder on the table, pressed play. 5 seconds, just his own voice saying, "It was still the correct decision strategically. The outcome I needed was achieved." He picked it up, stood. "The lie needed witnesses to survive. It doesn't have any left." He walked out. Behind him, the sound of a wine glass being set down, very carefully. The sound of a man making his last calculation. The elevator to the top floor felt like it took years. Luca stood in it and looked at his own reflection in the polished door and tried to find the thing Julia said she saw, the jaw, the eyes, the physical inheritance of a bloodline he had never known existed.
He had spent 23 years looking at his own face and seeing only his mother in it, because there was no one else to compare it to. Now he understood why. The people who could have shown him the comparison had been removed, methodically, deliberately, like variables being cleared from an equation. The elevator opened. Long corridor, one door at the end, light underneath it. He knocked. The door opened, and Aldo Ricci, legendary, dying, unmistakably real, looked at his grandson. He was tall. Illness had compressed him at the center, but hadn't reached the height. Silver white hair, a suit that was extraordinary in the way that suits are when the man wearing them has stopped caring about impressing anyone and started caring about respect. Hands that were large and composed in the way of someone who had been managing enormous things for a long time. But the eyes, dark, precise, on fire with something that had absolutely refused to go out. He looked at Luca and gripped the door frame, both hands, white-knuckled. "You have her eyes," he said. His voice broke at the end of the sentence, just at the very last syllable, just the smallest fracture in something that had been holding for a very long time. "You have exactly her eyes, and I have been asking God for 23 years to let me see whether you did." Luca could not speak. He had prepared things to say, a speech of a man with 36 minutes and a plan and no room for what was actually happening. All of it evaporated. They sat across from each other in the suite with the bay outside, the ancient water, the 1,000 lights of the city, the enormous, indifferent beauty of a world that doesn't pause for human catastrophe. Luca told him everything, raw, unfiltered, the way you talk to someone who has earned the unedited version. Aldo listened the way dangerous men listen, completely still, absorbing, recording every word. When Luca finished, the silence lasted almost a minute. 34 years, he said. His voice broke at the end of the sentence, just at the very last syllable, just the smallest fracture in something that had been holding for a very long time. 34 years. Every wall I built, every war I prepared for, every night I went to sleep armed against an attack from Naples. He looked at the window. The attack never came from Cesare. I was fighting a battle that someone else manufactured and handed to both of us. Borelli gave you each a weapon and told the other one fired first. Aldo looked at his hands, those large, composed hands. "My daughter," he said. "She found the truth. She tried to tell someone. Borelli found out she'd made the call." Luca's jaw was tight. "She was 41. I know how old she was." His voice went somewhere very quiet and very final. "I know every age she will always be." 30 seconds of silence. Then, "She ran to protect you, not herself. I need you to know that. She found out she was being watched, and she ran to protect you, not to save herself. She ran because staying visible meant they would eventually use you to get to her. She put you into a name they didn't know, and she disappeared, and she thought distance would protect you." "It almost did," Luca said. "Yes." Aldo looked at him. "Almost."
"Come with me," Luca said. "Cesar, tonight, right now." He checked the time. 31 minutes. Not to negotiate, not to defend yourself, just to sit in a room with him and let him hear your voice and see your face while I play him 30 seconds of Marco Borelli explaining the mechanism. He held the old man's gaze. "He has spent 34 years building his life around the belief that you betrayed him. He deserves to spend whatever time he has left knowing that you didn't." Aldo looked at him. "He might kill me where I stand," he said. "He might. He might not believe any of it. He will. Cesar Conti has spent his entire life reading men. When he sits across from you and hears the truth, he will know it's the truth because some part of him has always known it. He just didn't know he was being kept from it." Aldo was quiet. "I came here," the old man said, "to see your face once, to know you were real. I told myself that was enough, that I would look at you, and then I would go quietly and let the disease finish what it started." He paused. "But your grandmother always said I never knew when to stop." What did she mean by it? She meant it as a criticism. He reached for his jacket, stood, became in a single motion the full height of what he had been, the legend, the ghost, the man made real. He straightened his tie. 29 minutes, he said. We should go. The gates opened without a word from the intercom. That was the part that made the guards uncomfortable. Not the two men walking toward them, not the identity of the one they recognized and the one they didn't. The gates had opened before the car fully stopped, which meant someone inside had been watching the approach on camera and made the call, and no one had been told who made it. They walked through the courtyard under floodlights. 8 guards, weapons visible, not raised, eyes tracking Aldo Ricci with the particular alertness of men encountering a name they have always been told was essentially mythological. The corridor, the photographs, the marble floor, into the study. Cesar was at the window with his back to the room. The way he stood was different from how Luca had ever seen him stand. Something in the back, something in the shoulders, the posture of a man who has been told what is coming and has been standing at that window processing it since he was told. "Close the door," he said. The door closed. The room held 4 of them, Luca, Julia, Cesar, Aldo, and 34 years that had never been accurately named. Cesar turned. He looked at Aldo, and what happened in his face was the most extraordinary thing Luca had ever witnessed in another human being. Not violence, not the cold calculation that Luca had watched in that face for 6 years. Something older, something that had been frozen for 3 decades and now in the warmth of this specific room beginning to break up and shift and move. He looked at Aldo the way you look at someone who died when you were young and appears in your doorway unchanged. "You look terrible," Cesar said. "You look old," Aldo said. "I am old. So am I." A pause containing decades. 3 months, Cesar said. That's what the report said. The doctors say 3. I suspect 2. They're being kind. I came anyway. You came to my city after 34 years of knowing I wanted you dead. I came because I have 34 years of truth that you were never allowed to hear, and I'm running out of time to deliver it. I paused, and because I needed to see the boy.
Cesar looked at Luca, then back at Aldo. "Tell me," Cesar said, very quiet, very still. The stillness of a man who has been waiting longer than he knew. "Tell me about Palermo." "I was never there," Aldo said. "I have never lied to you, not once, not in 35 years, and the worst thing that has ever happened to me, in a life that has contained some genuinely terrible things, worse than the cancer, worse than losing Elena, worse than any of it, was the morning I understood that you believed I had." Cesar's jaw moved. "Then, who?" The study door opened. Borelli walked in. 3 men behind him, smiling, the smile of a man who left the restaurant, made the phone call, drove to the compound, and spent the drive recalculating, who has decided that control of this room is still possible if he moves fast enough. "My apologies for the interruption, but this has gone far enough," Borelli said warmly. Cesar looked at him. 1 second. Marco. A single word, careful, a word that was doing forensic work in real time. "Why are you here?" "Luca has been compromised. The woman he brought in has been feeding him fabricated." "Play it," Luca said. Julia pressed play. "I was 26. I had built something real. Cesar and Aldo were going to consume it." Borelli's 3 men looked at each other. Domenico was supposed to be frightened. He drew a weapon. the situation became irreversible. Cesar did not move, did not breathe visibly. It was still the correct decision strategically. The outcome I needed was achieved. Elena Ricci made her own choices. And then she died. And then she died. Click. The fire crackled. No one spoke. Cesar turned slowly and looked at Marco Borelli, and Borelli, who had been absolutely composed in every dangerous moment of his 70-year life, who had built his entire existence on the unshakable foundation of his own nerve, took one step backward. Involuntary. He didn't mean to. His body knew before his mind caught up. "The documents are fabricated," he started. Marco. One word. The temperature in the room dropped. "Do you know," Cesar said very softly, "what the worst thing is? Not the brother, not 34 years, not even the girl." He looked at Borelli with an expression that was beyond anger, past rage, on the other side, in the territory where feeling has burned away and only clarity remains. "You were in my house for 34 years, at my table. You held my son at his christening. You sat with me when I couldn't sleep from the grief of something you caused. You absorbed my grief like it was yours. You held it for me." His voice broke on a single syllable and rebuilt itself immediately. "I trusted you with the most private version of myself, the one that was destroyed, and you built your empire on it." Borelli opened his mouth. "Don't," Cesar said. "Not one more word, not one more sentence. You have said enough in this city for one lifetime." He looked at his guards. He said 3 words. Borelli's 3 men stepped back. Borelli looked at Luca, at Aldo, at Cesar. The grandfather smile made one final appearance, brave in its way, the composure of a man who had always known this was the possible ending and had decided long ago that he would meet it the same way he had met everything else, with total control of his face. "You would not exist," Borelli said to Cesar, quietly, "without what I built for you. I would exist. I would just exist with my brother alive." He turned away. The guards moved. The clock tower began to strike midnight. 1, 2, 3.
Luca stood at the window. Julia stood beside him, their hands not touching, not yet, in the space just before that, the threshold of something permanent. Behind them, 2 old men sat at the desk, talking quietly, too quietly to hear, the conversation that 34 years of the wrong war had prevented. 4, 5, 6. "She knew," Luca said, quietly, not to Julia specifically, to the room, to the night, to wherever the words needed to go. "She knew all of it," Julia said. "She didn't run from her father. She ran toward your future." She was 41. Yes. 7, 8. The bay outside was dark and enormous, the city in 10,000 lights, the ancient water below it all, indifferent and persistent, and there long before any of this, and long after. 9. "What happens now?" Luca said. "Now Cesare retires. Now Aldo has somewhere to be for the next few months. Now the truth is the historical record instead of the lie." Julia looked at him sideways. "And now you decide what you do with the door." "What door?" "The one you've always had, the one Aldo is going to tell you about in a letter he hasn't written yet." She paused. "The one that leads out of all of this." 10, 11. He looked at her. "How do you know about a letter he hasn't written?" "Because I know the kind of man he is," she said simply, "and I know what he would want to say to you if he had the words for it yet." 12. The final toll rolled out over Naples and faded slowly into the water. Midnight.
Luca Ferrante was alive. His grandfather was alive. The lie was dead. And something else, something without a name yet, was just beginning. This is where the story should end. It almost did. But 3 days later, Julia called him. Her voice was different, not the controlled tone he knew, not the professional steadiness, something underneath it that he had heard only twice before in 6 years, the sound of a woman who has found something she wasn't expecting and is still deciding what it means. "Come to the archive. I need you to see something." He drove across the city in 20 minutes. She was in the sub-basement, the same room, the shelves, the humidity cabinets, the fluorescent buzz. But the window was repaired now, and the lights worked, and she was standing at her desk with a small metal box in front of her. Old, battered, the kind of box that has been somewhere deliberately hidden for a long time. "Where did this come from?" he said. It was inside the wall of the archive, behind a panel in the far shelf, the one the third bullet hit. She looked at him. Based on the condition, she paused. 21 years, possibly longer. 21 years. Luca was 2 years old 21 years ago. His mother died 21 years ago. "Open it," he said. Julia opened the box. Inside, a single cassette tape, old format, the plastic casing slightly yellowed. And a note, handwritten, the handwriting of someone who had been crying while they wrote it, the pressure uneven, certain letters reconstructed, the paper slightly warped.
For whoever finds this, if this reaches you, then something happened to me, and the things I needed to say didn't get said in time. This tape contains a conversation recorded without knowledge on February 14, 1995. The man speaking is Marco Borelli. The woman speaking is me. I know who I am speaking to won't understand everything on this tape, but one person will. His name is Luca. If you are Luca, I put this here because I understood what was coming for me, and I needed you to have proof that was not connected to my name or my body or anything they could discredit. I need you to know that I was not afraid of them. I was afraid of leaving you without the truth. You are 2 years old as I write this. You don't know anything yet. I need you to know that everything I did from the moment you were born was to build distance between you and the thing that was coming for our family. I need you to know that the distance worked, that you survived it, that you grew into someone. And I need you to know that your grandfather is not the man they told you he was. He is not the man anyone told anyone he was. He is a man who loved your grandmother until the day she died, and who has loved me every day of my life from a distance because I asked him to, because closeness was dangerous. Tell him I was not afraid. Tell him I found the seam. Tell him the seam is in the tape. And Luca, you have his eyes. I always thought so. I'm glad that's what you carry. Elena. Luca read the note. He read it again. He sat down on the edge of the desk. His mother had known. She had been in this archive, this exact building, possibly this exact room 21 years ago, already aware of what was coming, already organizing the evidence, already building the proof that might eventually reach him. She had placed it behind a panel in a shelf, and then she had gone home. And 3 weeks later, she was dead. And the cassette tape had stayed in the wall for 21 years, until a silenced bullet, fired by a man trying to destroy the truth, hit the exact shelf, and cracked the panel, and let maintenance find the cavity. The bullet fired to silence the truth had fractured the wall that hid it. Luca sat with that for a long time. Julia did not speak. She understood when silence was the most useful thing she could offer. Finally, he said, "She was here." "Yes." "In this building." "Yes." She put the evidence here because she understood that archives are the one place that governments and criminals both underestimate. She knew what she was doing. "She was brilliant," Julia said softly. She was her grandfather's daughter in all the best ways. Luca looked at the cassette tape. He thought about a woman he had no memory of, a photograph, a name on a death certificate, a cause of death he now knew was a lie. He thought about her sitting in this room, afraid, not of dying, she had said so, afraid of leaving him without the truth. She had been 41 years old.
She had looked at a 2-year-old child and understood that one day, maybe many years from now, maybe never, he would need to know what she knew, and she had put it in a wall and waited. 21 years. He picked up the note, folded it carefully, put it in his jacket pocket with the photograph from the church and the letter Aldo had written him. 3 pieces of the same person, 3 fragments of a woman he never got to know. "I need to make a call," he said. Julia nodded. He walked out of the archive, into the narrow Naples street, into the October cold. He called Aldo. The phone rang 4 times. "Luca." "She left something," he said. His voice was steady. "She left a note in the archive. She put it in a wall 21 years ago, and we just found it." He paused. "She left a note." Silence on the line. "What does it say?" "She said—" He stopped, collected the breath. "She said to tell you she wasn't afraid." The line was quiet for a very long time. When Aldo spoke again, his voice had been changed by whatever had happened to it in those seconds of silence. "She was never afraid of anything," he said, "not once in her entire life." "I know," Luca said. He had never met her, but he knew now. Cesare Conti retired. The word retired doing significant work in that sentence. He closed the compound in the hills and moved to a smaller house on the coast. No guards, no staff, a garden that needed work and a view of the water, and a photograph of Domenico on the mantelpiece. The same photograph, the one from 1982, Domenico laughing at something outside the frame. He had looked at that photograph every day for 34 years and seen betrayal in it. Now he looked at it just as his brother, laughing at something, outside the frame. Aldo came to stay in the house down the road. Cesare's idea, offered without ceremony, accepted without elaboration. 2 old men who had 34 years of the wrong war to undo, and approximately 2 months to undo it in. They were seen occasionally by the village, walking along the coastal path in the mornings when Aldo had energy for it. 2 old men, talking, sometimes arguing. Once, a woman at the cafe near the water said she saw them standing at the cliff-top railing, looking out at the sea for almost an hour without speaking. She said it looked like the kind of silence that had waited a long time to finally be comfortable. Luca visited twice. The first time he brought Julia. Aldo met her at the door and looked at her for a long moment, and then said with the absolute seriousness of a man who did not offer compliments casually, "She put the tape in the wall. I've been thinking about that for 3 weeks. That is the most intelligent thing anyone connected to this family has ever done." Julia said she knew the archive would outlast everything else. "Yes," Aldo said. She was right about almost everything.
The second visit was just Luca. He sat with his grandfather in the garden in early December. Cold, but the light was extraordinary, the specific winter light of the Italian coast that makes everything look like a painting. They talked for a long time, about Elena, about the years before, about the architecture of the thing Borelli had built and how it had affected each of them in ways they were still discovering. At one point, Aldo said, "You should know that what Cesare built, even on the foundation of a lie, he built with real capability. He is genuinely extraordinary. The lie didn't make him great. He made himself great, despite everything else." He paused. "I always knew that, even when I hated him." "He said the same about you," Luca said. Aldo looked at him. "He said you were the most formidable person he'd ever been enemies with." "When did he say that?" The night when you were talking. Aldo looked back at the garden. We wasted 34 years, he said. Yes. There is no adequate response to that. No. They sat with it. The light changed on the water below. Eventually, Aldo reached into his jacket and produced an envelope. He held it for a moment without giving it over. This is for after, he said. After what? Aldo gave him the look of a man who did not have time for euphemism. After, he said again. Luca took the envelope. He didn't open it. He put it in his jacket pocket with everything else he carried now. The photograph from the church, his mother's note, the letter Aldo had written him 3 weeks after that night. 4 pieces of the same story. 4 fragments of people who had been trying to reach him across time and distance and architecture and carefully managed lies. He had them all now.
Aldo Ritchie died on a Tuesday morning in February. Not 3 months after the diagnosis. Not 2. 4. The doctors had been wrong in the right direction, which Julia said was statistically unusual, and Luca thought sounded exactly like something his grandfather would arrange out of sheer stubbornness. He was in the room. Cesare was there too, sitting in the chair by the window. They didn't talk much in the last hours. They had talked enough in the weeks before, more talking than either of them had done in their respective decades of silence. The important things had been said, the ones that needed to be said quietly, and the ones that needed to be said out loud, and the few that had to be written down and given over in an envelope. At the end, Aldo looked at Luca, then at the window. Then he was gone. The way very large things sometimes go, without drama, without announcement, simply present, and then not.
Luca stood. He adjusted his jacket. He walked out into the corridor where Julia was waiting with 2 coffees that had gone cold. She looked at his face. She didn't ask anything. She handed him the coffee. He took it. They stood in the corridor of the hospital and drank cold coffee in silence. "What did the letter say?" she asked eventually. "The one he gave you in the garden, the one for after." Luca reached into his jacket. He unfolded it. He read it one more time. He read it many times in the 2 months since Aldo had pressed it into his hand.
Luca, I am not good at this. Your grandmother always said I expressed love through action and avoided it in language. She was right, and I never told her she was right, which is perhaps the thing I regret most specifically. I want you to know that you were looked for every year, even when looking was dangerous, even when finding you meant risk. You were looked for because you were worth the risk, and because your mother asked me, the last time I heard her voice, to never stop. I did not stop. I also want you to know that you do not have to carry any of this. The organization, the history, the weight of what 2 families built and destroyed across 34 years. None of it belongs to you unless you choose it. You did not choose to be born into it. You have every right to put it down and walk through the door your mother built for you with her life. Use the door, Luca. That is not a metaphor. She literally built a door. It leads to whatever you decide comes next. One last thing. You asked me on the coast whether I was afraid. Tell me, is this what afraid looks like? I did not think so. A.R. Luca folded the letter. Julia was watching him. Well, she said. He looked at the hospital corridor, the fluorescent lights, the linoleum floor, the ordinary working machinery of a place that manages endings. He looked at Julia. He thought about the door. He said she literally built a door, Luca said. She did? Julia reached into her bag. She produced a small key, old, heavy, the kind cut for a serious lock. The archive building owns a property in Procida, small, on the water. Elena registered it under a name I had to spend 3 weeks finding. She paid the annual tax on it every year until she died. Then it lapsed into archive property. She held the key out. I cleared the title last month. It's yours.
Luca looked at the key, at Julia, at the key again. She bought a house, he said. She bought an escape route, Julia said. She just never got to use it. He took the key. It was old and heavy and called from her bag. His mother had held this key 21 years ago, planning a future she didn't get to live. He closed his hand around it. Procida, he said. Small, quiet, 40 minutes by ferry. She paused. Decent coffee, apparently. Apparently. She watched him. Are we going? She said.
He looked at the key in his hand. Use the door, Luca. That is not a metaphor. She literally built a door. He looked at Julia. Yes, he said. When? He put the key in his jacket pocket, next to the photograph, next to the note, next to the letters. Next to every piece of the people who had been trying to deliver him to this moment. Now, he said. They walked out of the hospital into the February light. Cold, clean, the specific brightness of a winter morning after everything has changed. Naples behind them. The ferry waiting. The door his mother built, finally open. The lie lasted 34 years. The truth took one night. The door had always been there. She just needed him to be ready to walk through it.
Please like and subscribe.